Good morning/afternoon/evening, everyone. Let me ask you something. Have you ever walked into a room and felt your energy shift the moment someone opened their mouth? Certainly. Recognize the power of your response, without subheadings or a conclusion, written in a natural, engaging, emotionally expressive tone that feels professional and real, as if spoken aloud. Every day, we face moments that test our patience. People who push our buttons, challenge our sense of peace, and seem determined to provoke a reaction. It could be a co-worker with passive-aggressive comments, a family member who manipulates with guilt, or even a stranger who throws unnecessary negativity your way. And when it happens, it feels so personal, doesn't it? Like an attack on your dignity, your intelligence, your worth. You want to react, you want to defend yourself, you want to prove something. But here's the hard truth we rarely say out loud: you don't have to respond the way they expect you to. In fact, you don't owe anyone a reaction that costs you your peace. You hold more power in your response than you realize. The moment you recognize that your emotional energy is a choice, not a reflex, everything changes. You're not at the mercy of anyone's tone, mood, or drama. That realization, that's a game changer. It means you can be in the middle of a storm and still choose silence. It means you can be insulted and not internalize a single word. It means you can walk away, not because you're weak or afraid, but because you refuse to be pulled into someone else's chaos. We've been conditioned to think that reacting is strength, that defending yourself instantly proves you're smart or tough or in control. But have you ever noticed that the loudest reaction often comes from the most insecure place? It's not power, it's survival. True power isn't loud, it isn't frantic, it isn't emotional fireworks, it's quiet. Measured, intentional. Power is pausing, assessing, and then responding, not reacting, because a reaction is emotional, a response is strategic. Toxic people thrive on reaction. That's how they know they've found your weak spot. The more you react, the more control they gain. But when you stop giving them the reaction they expect, when your silence confuses them, when your calm rattles them, they start to lose their grip. Your refusal to react becomes your shield. It's not about being cold. It's about being centered. It's about knowing who you are so deeply that someone else's behavior no longer shakes your foundation. Think about how often we let someone else's words dictate our mood. One harsh sentence, one sarcastic comment, and suddenly the whole day feels ruined. Why? Because we gave them the keys to our emotional state. We handed over control like it was nothing. But that control, it belongs to you, always has. It's not easy, of course. Your nervous system wants to protect you. Your ego wants to be right. Your heart wants to feel understood. But none of those instincts serve you when dealing with toxic energy. That's where discipline comes in. Emotional discipline is the ability to feel everything: rage, hurt, confusion, and still choose the response that serves your peace, not your pride. Let me tell you something that will stay with you. You don't have to react just because someone else is being loud, cruel, or unreasonable. Your response isn't a reflection of them, it's a reflection of you. Your values, your growth, your self-respect, and choosing not to engage isn't weakness. It's wisdom. It's strength dressed in restraint. That's what makes it so powerful. Some people will try to trigger you just to prove they can. Some will bait you just to watch you break. But if you can sit in that tension and choose calm, you win every time, not because you won an argument, but because you refused to be pulled down into it in the first place. They want you angry because when you're angry, you're easier to control. You say things you regret. You lose your edge. But when you stay composed, you stay in charge. There's a moment between what someone says and what you do next. That split second, that's where your power lies. It's the most important moment of the interaction. If you can pause there, breathe there, and think clearly in that space, you've already changed the entire dynamic. That pause is where you claim your authority. That pause is where transformation begins. And here's something that might surprise you. When you learn to master your response, you don't just protect yourself. You inspire others. People around you notice your steadiness. They feel your strength. You become the person others look to, not because you're loud or intimidating, but because your calm is contagious. Your presence becomes a standard. You walk into a room and people adjust, not because you demand it, but because your energy speaks louder than your words ever could. So the next time someone tries to pull you into a storm, remember, you don't have to attend every fire they light. You can let them burn out on their own while you walk away with your peace intact. Let me know if you'd like a version with vocal emphasis cues for a live speech delivery or a version adapted into a video script. Master the pause, written as a flowing, emotionally rich and professional speech segment, without subheadings or conclusion as you requested. There's a moment, it's small, almost invisible. It happens between what someone says to you and what you do next. That moment is what I call the pause. It's so subtle most people miss it entirely. Someone insults you, and the words fly back before you even know what you're saying. Someone rolls their eyes, and the frustration hits your chest like fire. A sarcastic tone, a condescending stare, and suddenly, your heart races, your breath shortens, and before you can even think, you've reacted, loud, fast, emotional, and it's not until afterward, when the dust settles, that you sit with the regret. I shouldn't have said that. I should have handled that better. We've all been there, haven't we? But here's the truth, it doesn't have to be that way, that moment. That pause, it's not just a space, it's your power source. It's where you get to decide, do I want to act out of emotion or intention? Do I want to defend my pride or protect my peace? Because in that pause, you're not reacting, you're reclaiming your control, reclaiming your energy, reclaiming your right to respond with strength, not just instinct. But let's be real, mastering the pause isn't easy. It takes awareness, it takes discipline. It takes a level of emotional self-respect that says, I am not letting anyone else dictate how I move today. And that includes people who try to provoke you, people who live off drama, people who find joy in chaos. They want you to snap, they want you to break, because when you do, they win. But when you pause, they lose that power, and more importantly, you win something deeper. You win you. The pause isn't passive. Don't get that twisted. It's not weakness or fear or avoidance. It's presence. It's you standing still while everything around you is trying to shake you. It's you holding your fire with intention instead of letting it burn everything in sight. Sometimes the pause is just a breath, one breath, deep enough to cool your nerves, long enough to hear your own thoughts before someone else's words fill the space. Sometimes the pause is silence, a few seconds of nothing while someone's venom hits the air and falls flat, because you didn't catch it, you didn't engage, you didn't allow it to own you. And sometimes the pause is space. Walking away, choosing not to reply to that text, choosing not to get pulled into a conversation that's only going in circles. People think the fastest person wins. The one who responds the quickest, claps back with the sharpest words, who never lets anything slide. But I'll tell you something different. The one who masters the pause, that's the person people don't mess with. That's the person whose power is steady, not loud. They're not unpredictable, they're unshakable. When you pause, you break the cycle, the toxic pattern that says they push, I react, they yell, I yell louder, they disrespect me, I come back swinging. But when you pause, the pattern ends with you. You're no longer playing the game. They're playing alone. And here's what's wild. The more you practice the pause, the longer it becomes. At first, it's 1 second, a deep breath. Then it's 3, then 10. Then you're walking away from things that once controlled you. Then you're smiling at the same people who once triggered you, because they just don't have access to your peace anymore. You start to notice things others miss. You feel the shift in energy before it becomes a storm. You see the manipulation before it finds its mark. And because you've mastered the pause, you've mastered your response. You choose your words. You protect your tone. You keep your dignity intact. It's not just about staying calm. It's about choosing how you show up, even when the world gives you every excuse to explode. It's about deciding, again and again, I will not shrink to meet this chaos. I will rise to protect my peace. So yes, the pause might seem small, but don't underestimate it, because inside it lives the most powerful thing you own, your choice. Let me know if you want this adapted into a visual monologue or turned into a video script with stage direction or tone inflections. Subheading and conclusion: emotional detachment is not weakness. written in a compelling, speech-style format with expressive language, no subheadings or conclusion, as requested. There's something people get wrong all the time. They see someone who's calm, composed, unaffected by chaos, and they whisper to themselves, "She's cold, he doesn't care, they're so distant." But let me be very clear, emotional detachment is not weakness. It's not indifference, it's not being numb, and it's definitely not the absence of feeling. It is strength, the kind of strength that doesn't raise its voice, the kind that doesn't chase approval and doesn't need to win an argument to feel validated. Emotional detachment is clarity. It's what happens when you stop giving toxic people the privilege of rattling your soul. You see, we live in a world that glorifies overreaction. Social media rewards drama. People equate passion with yelling, truth with anger, and loyalty with emotional chaos. So when someone stands still in the middle of it all, unmoved, unshaken, unbothered, it's misunderstood, but that's not because it lacks power. It's because it is power, real, grounded, unwavering power. It takes nothing to react. Anybody can explode when pushed. Anyone can snap when provoked. But it takes real control to stay seated in your peace when someone's trying to knock you off balance. That's what emotional detachment gives you. It gives you space between what they do and how you feel. It's the boundary between their storm and your energy. It's not that you don't care, it's that you've learned to care intelligently. You've stopped allowing everyone access to your emotions just because they want a reaction. People will test you. They will try to manipulate you with guilt, bait you with criticism or guilt, trip you into bending just to make them comfortable. And if you're not grounded, if you don't have that emotional distance, you'll find yourself performing for their approval or shrinking to avoid their judgment. That's not peace, that's emotional slavery. And it will drain you over and over again. Emotional detachment says, "I hear you, but I don't absorb you." It says, "I see your behavior, but I don't take it personally." And that shift, it frees you. You stop trying to fix people who don't want healing. You stop explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. You stop chasing closure where only confusion lives. You step back, not because you're weak, but because you're wise enough to know when something is not yours to carry. There is a quiet confidence that comes with detachment. When someone throws shade and you don't flinch, when someone tries to guilt you and you smile calmly, when someone pushes every button they can find and still, you don't rise to their level. You don't lose sleep. You don't lose your center. That's not coldness. That's power under control, and let me tell you, there's nothing more intimidating to a toxic person than someone they can't provoke. But let's be honest, it's not easy. Detachment is a skill. You have to practice it. You have to learn when to care deeply and when to let go completely. You have to train your mind to observe rather than absorb. To listen without reacting, to feel everything, and still choose peace. That's the difference. Emotional detachment doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you don't let those feelings run your life. You're allowed to protect your peace. You're allowed to say, "I don't want this conversation." You're allowed to walk away from relationships that feed on drama, attention, and control. You're allowed to not respond, to not pick up the phone, to not entertain what disturbs your clarity. That's not cruel. That's called self-respect. And if someone calls that cold or distant, let them, because your healing does not require their permission. Your boundaries do not need to be approved to be valid. In a world where everyone wants a piece of your energy, emotional detachment is your filter. It's what stops you from bleeding out for people who wouldn't offer a bandage if you broke. It's how you choose yourself without apology. It's how you protect the parts of you that are still growing, still healing, still learning to love from a place of fullness rather than fear. So no, emotional detachment isn't weakness. It's wisdom, it's strategy, it's survival, and it's your right to hold it close, not as a wall, but as a way to rise above the noise and finally breathe freely. Let me know if you'd like to use this for a video voiceover or need a version with pauses and emphasis for stage delivery. Protect your peace, written in a natural, emotionally expressive, and powerful tone, without subheadings or a conclusion. Crafted like a spoken word or professional speech, peace is not a personality trait. It's not something you're born with. It's not about being passive or easygoing or soft-spoken. Peace is a decision. It's something you fight for. It's something you build, and once you have it, you learn, often the hard way, that not everyone deserves access to it. Because the truth is, there are people who will test it. People who live in chaos and want company. People who don't know how to speak without wounding, how to connect without control, or how to exist without drama. And if you're not careful, if you don't guard your peace like it's sacred, they'll take it from you without even asking. It starts small, one comment that gets under your skin, one passive-aggressive joke at your expense, one argument you didn't want but felt pressured to have, and suddenly your mood shifts, your day feels heavier, your mind is racing, and you're carrying tension that isn't even yours. Why? Because you allowed someone else's energy to enter a space it didn't earn. And protecting your peace means learning how to stop that before it begins. Peace isn't always quiet. Sometimes protecting it means using your voice, saying no without guilt, setting boundaries without a long explanation, walking away from conversations that feel like battles in disguise. You're not required to participate in every argument you're invited to. You're not responsible for fixing every broken person who shows up at your door. And you're not selfish for choosing silence over a situation that drains you. You're just someone who's learned that your peace matters, and that if you don't protect it, no one else will. The world will pull at you. People will demand your time, your energy, your reaction. They will try to make you feel guilty for not engaging, not responding, not bending to their chaos. But listen closely. Peace is not about pleasing people. It's about honoring yourself. It's about knowing that not every invitation deserves your presence, not every message deserves a reply, and not every emotion deserves to be felt just because someone tried to hand it to you. Protecting your peace means knowing the difference between empathy and absorption. You can feel for someone without carrying their pain. You can support someone without sacrificing your own mental health. You can love deeply without losing yourself. That's not cold, that's mature. That's grounded. That's someone who's done the work of healing and now refuses to bleed again just to keep someone else comfortable. There are people who will misread this, who will say you've changed, that you've become distant, detached, maybe even arrogant. Let them, because they don't understand that your peace wasn't free. They weren't there for the sleepless nights, the anxiety, the self-doubt, the years of emotional noise. They didn't see you claw your way back to balance. And now that you have it, you're not letting it go just to fit into someone else's storm. Peace is not the absence of noise. It's the ability to stay grounded when the noise surrounds you. It's being able to walk into a room filled with tension and not absorb a single ounce of it. It's being able to hear criticism and still not shrink. It's choosing not to defend yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. That's peace, that's power, that's you protecting what you've fought so hard to find. You don't need to explain it. You don't need to justify it. You don't need to soften it to make others more comfortable. Protecting your peace might mean cutting off access to people you once loved. It might mean keeping your circle tight, your energy guarded, your time sacred. That's not being closed off. That's being intentional. That's being aware of how much your peace costs, and refusing to put it on sale. You teach people how to treat you by what you tolerate. So if someone brings nothing but anxiety, confusion, manipulation, or guilt into your life, you have every right to protect your peace from that influence, even if it means walking away, even if it means being misunderstood. Even if it means standing alone for a while, because your peace is your power, it's your clarity, it's your freedom, and it's not up for negotiation. Let me know if you'd like the next one in this series or want help turning this into a short-form video, podcast script, or performance monologue. Use silence as a strategy, written in a powerful, emotionally resonant speech format, without subheadings or conclusion. As you asked, silence is misunderstood. People see it as empty, passive, weak. As if saying nothing means you have nothing to say. But real ones know silence is not the absence of power. It's the control of it. Silence, when used with intention, becomes one of the most effective strategies you'll ever learn. Because it doesn't beg, it doesn't chase, it doesn't defend. It observes, it waits, it disarms, and it holds the kind of strength that noise can't fake. We live in a world obsessed with reaction. Everything's fast, loud, constant. People talk to prove a point, to fill a space, to avoid discomfort. But what happens when you don't respond on cue? What happens when you give them nothing? No defense, no justification, no counterattack. Just silence. Everything shifts, because silence makes people sit with themselves. And that's something most aren't ready for. Silence reveals character. It's the space where truth begins to breathe. When you're silent, you can actually see. People will show you who they are when you stop explaining who you are. When you stop fighting to be understood. When you stop performing emotional labor for people who don't listen anyway. They either rise to meet you, or they expose their inability to do so. Either way, silence did the work. You didn't have to lift a word. Sometimes silence is your protection. When emotions are high, when conversations are turning toxic, when someone is trying to bait you into saying something you'll regret, silence steps in like a shield. Not everything requires a response. Not every attack deserves a reaction. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is not respond at all. You don't have to explain your boundaries. You don't have to debate your worth. You don't have to prove anything to people who are only listening to twist your words. Using silence doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care about what matters, your peace, your clarity, your emotional energy. Silence gives you space to process, to breathe, to choose your next move with intention. It's the pause before the pivot, the stillness before the shift. And if you listen closely, really listen, silence will tell you more than words ever could. You'll feel the tone behind the smiles. You'll see the patterns behind the apologies. You'll recognize the power plays hiding in plain sight. Silence also speaks to you. In that space where no one else's voice is trying to drown you out, you'll hear your own again. That gut feeling you keep pushing down, it starts to rise. The truth you've been avoiding, it gets louder. Silence connects you back to yourself. It's where you remember who you are without the noise of the world telling you who to be. And there's strategy in that, because when you operate from a place of internal clarity, you stop moving out of reaction and start moving with purpose. You become unpredictable. They can't read you, can't control you. Can't figure out how to shake you, because you've removed their power source, you've taken away the background. Fourth, the emotional volley, the energy exchange they were counting on, and what's left them alone with their own noise while you walk in quiet power. Silence is not avoidance. It's not running. It's choosing not to be available for nonsense. It's showing restraint when ego begs for a reaction. It's choosing elevation over escalation. And the truth is, some things are not worth your voice. Some conversations are designed to drain you, not develop you. Some people just want the performance, not the resolution. So give them nothing. Give them silence. You'll find freedom there. You'll find wisdom there. And most importantly, you'll find that peace doesn't always come through being heard. Sometimes it comes through walking away without a sound, knowing you said the most powerful thing of all. Nothing. Not because you didn't have something to say, but because it wasn't worth saying. So use silence as a strategy, not out of fear, but out of intention, not because you can't speak, but because you know when not to. That's control, that's presence, that's power. Let me know if you'd like this adapted for spoken performance with dramatic timing cues or emphasis. I can also help develop the next part in your series if you're creating a themed collection. Confidence through boundaries, crafted as a powerful, emotionally rich speech, style piece without subheadings or a conclusion. Just one seamless, impactful flow. Confidence doesn't always look like bold words or a big presence. Sometimes confidence is quiet, it's calm, it's the steady hand that draws a line and says, "This is where I end and you do not begin." That line, that boundary, isn't a wall. It's not about pushing people away or building distance out of fear. It's about honoring yourself. Confidence isn't about being loud, it's about being clear, and nothing brings more clarity than knowing your limits and standing by them, unapologetically. Boundaries are how you teach the world how to treat you. They are not conditions for love. They are expressions of self-respect. When you set boundaries, you're not being difficult. You're not being selfish. You're choosing not to abandon yourself for the comfort of others. And that is confidence in its purest form, the kind that doesn't shout, "Look at me," but says, I know who I am and I know what I deserve. There's a kind of inner strength that's born the moment you realize you don't have to explain your no. You don't have to justify your silence. You don't have to make people comfortable with your standards. That's not your job. Your job is to protect your energy, your time, your peace, and to do it without guilt. Confidence through boundaries is not just knowing what you want. It's knowing what you won't tolerate. There will be people who won't like your boundaries, people who benefited from your lack of them, people who mistook your kindness for access and your silence for permission. And when you change the rules, when you stop overgiving, over-explaining, overextending, they'll push back. They'll question your character, challenge your choices, call you selfish, cold, or too much. Let them. Their discomfort is not your responsibility. It's just a sign that your confidence is finally taking up space where your fear used to live. Boundaries are not meant to isolate you. They are meant to elevate you. They filter out what no longer serves your growth. They create space for authentic connection, not obligation, not guilt, not fear, but real, mutual, healthy connection. Because when you value yourself enough to say, this is what I need to feel safe, you attract people who respect you for it, you shift the energy, you stop settling for crumbs and start expecting full meals, and not in arrogance but in worthiness. Confidence doesn't come from how others treat you. It grows when you show yourself you can trust your own voice, that you will not betray yourself to be liked, that you won't abandon your truth just to keep peace on the surface while a war brews within you. Confidence through boundaries says, I'd rather disappoint someone else than disappoint myself. That's not easy, but it's necessary. We often confuse love with sacrifice, that if we care, we must bend. That if we're kind, we must give endlessly, but real confidence knows where to draw the line between compassion and self-neglect. You can love people and still have limits. You can be generous and still say no. You can be supportive and still say, not at the expense of me. That's not cruelty, that's clarity, and clarity is power. It takes strength to speak up, to walk away from dynamics that keep you small. To say, this doesn't feel right, even when your voice shakes. To listen to your gut instead of the guilt someone else tries to place on your shoulders. Every time you do that, every time you honor your boundary, you reinforce a message deep within yourself, I matter. That's how confidence is built. Not in big, explosive moments, but in quiet, firm decisions made over and over again. You don't owe anyone access to your life just because they want it. You don't owe anyone your time just because they asked. You don't have to explain why something drains you, triggers you, exhausts you. Your emotional safety is reason enough, and when you really begin to believe that, everything changes. You stop needing permission to protect yourself. You stop shrinking in rooms that weren't built to honor you. You stop apologizing for taking care of yourself. Confidence through boundaries is not about control. It's about freedom. The freedom to be fully yourself without fear of what someone else will say, think, or feel. It's the courage to show up in your truth and let the chips fall where they may. Because when you know your worth, when you truly, deeply own it, you stop negotiating with people who try to convince you otherwise.